The call came at 6 in the morning, while the sea was still half asleep and the sky had decided whether it wanted to be night or day. And when I picked up the phone, all I heard was my mother's voice breaking apart between words, and she told me my father had collapsed at work. And for a second, everything around me went silent, because there are moments that split your life into before and after, and you never realize you're standing inside one until it's already happened. The hospital corridors felt longer than roads and colder than winter, and every minute felt heavier than the one before it. And while machines kept beeping and doctors kept moving, and strangers kept walking past like it was an ordinary day, my entire world is stuck inside a single room behind a single door. And all I could think about was the fact that I hadn't spoken to my father properly in almost a year. We two spent so much time arguing that we forgot how to talk. The truth is, I blamed him for everything when I was younger. I blamed her for not having enough money, and I blamed her for being too strict, and I blamed her for never understanding me. And every argument became another brick in a wall neither of us knew how to tear down. And eventually silence became easier than conversation, even though silence never solved anything. But I sat there waiting for news, I kept replaying memory I hadn't thought about in years. But suddenly I wasn't remembering the arguments anymore. I was remembering him carrying me home and I fell asleep in the backseat. I was remembering it, leaving before sunrise every morning. I was remembering the way he always pretended he wasn't tired, even when exhaustion was written across his face. The bass started rolling through my headphones because I needed something louder than my thoughts. And the rhythm echoed through the waiting room. My fears sat beside me like an unwanted passenger. And that's when I realized how many things people leave unsaid, because they assume tomorrow is guaranteed, and tomorrow is the biggest promise nobody can actually make. Band for band, but the pressure hit different, because no amount of pride matters when somebody you love is lying behind a hospital door. And no argument feels important when you're wondering whether you'll ever get another chance to finish the conversation. And every excuse suddenly sounds ridiculous when compared to regret. Hours passed and the daylight faded, and the city lights came alive outside the window. And every update felt like a lifetime apart from the last one. And every second forced me to face something I had been avoiding for years, because it's easy to act strong when life is predictable, and much harder when you're standing face to face with things you can't control. Now the rhythm starts building and the thoughts start racing, and every memory starts connecting to another memory. Depression was a way of scripting away everything unnecessary, and so lonely the truth remained. And the truth was simple: my father wasn't perfect, and neither was I. But somewhere between all the mistakes and misunderstanding, there was still love. And love doesn't disappear just because communication fails. When the doctor finally walked toward us, the entire world seemed to slow down and every sound disappeared, except the footsteps coming closer. And I remember holding my breath, because sometimes one sentence can outweigh 1,000 others. When he told us my father was going to survive, I felt relief hit harder than any fear that came before. The city kept moving outside and the traffic kept flowing, and people kept living their lives without knowing anything had changed. And everything had changed for me, cause I walked into that hospital carrying years of resentment, and walked out carrying perspective instead. And perspective is dangerous, cause once you see things clearly, you can never return to the comfort of misunderstanding. Years later I barely remember what we argued about, because most arguments expire faster than we think they will. But I still remember sitting beside his hospital bed, listening to the sound of machines while realizing how quickly life can remind you what actually matters. Whenever I get caught chasing things that won't map 10 years from now, I think about that night and the lesson I left behind. Because success means nothing to the people you wanted to share it with out there to see it. And pride is one of the most expensive things a person can never afford. Walked in with a calm face. Walked in with a calm face. Whole place got awkward. They were all talking big till the real work started. I was outside building while they stayed guarded, drawing up dreams but they never departed. I don't relate to the noise they created. I put in the hours and stay concentrated. They wanted attention, I wanted progression. That's why every move that I made gets celebrated. Funny how people get loud when they're distant, suddenly quiet when pressure is present, claiming they're dangerous, making it famous, but folding a second. The challenge is genuine. I study the angles, the habits, the patterns, the way that they panic when comfort is absent. I never depended on luck or a shortcut. I built every level through action and practice. Back then they laughed when I mapped out a vision. Now they're surprised that the vision got larger. Every dismissal just added more fuel, and every obstacle sharpened the armor. I kept advancing regardless of weather, regardless of losses, regardless of doubters. Now every room that I step in can feel it. The energy different the moment I'm out there. Too many talkers, not enough walkers. Too many bosses that never built anything. Too many promises floating around, but the proof disappears when it's time to bring evidence. I don't get caught in the performance. I care about progress and permanent leverage. I care about growth that survives every season, not hype that collapses the second it's tested. Every day felt like a race with myself, and I hated the thought of remaining the same. Watching the clock while improving the craft and refining the parts that were needing to change. They wanted comfort, I wanted momentum. They wanted applause, I wanted development. Now when they look at the distance I've covered, they act like the outcome was somehow irrelevant. I remember the nights when the lights stayed dim and the odds looked bigger than every ambition. Nobody clapping, nobody watching, nobody caring if I kept the mission. That's why the confidence different. It came from surviving conditions that forced adaptation, not from a caption, not from approval, not from a temporary validation. I see them chasing the shortcut again, looking for tricks and a magical answer, skipping the process and wondering later why nothing they touch ever turns into standards. Meanwhile I'm stacking another improvement, another adjustment, another advancement, making it harder for anybody doubting to question the path that I'm taking. Whole lot of talking, whole lot of posting, whole lot of acting important for cameras, whole lot of flexing with nothing behind it. A castle of smoke disappearing from pressure. I learned to separate real from illusion, substance from surface, results from assumptions. Now every decision is based on execution and not on the brain on discussion. Foot on the gas but the focus is steady. Never been desperate, never been messy, always been ready to level up heavy whenever a challenge was sent to address me. I treat every setback like part of the training, every mistake like a lesson in progress, every delay like a test of my patience, every success like a reason for more steps. Look at the climb and the time and the line and the work and the purpose are finally matching. Years of investment are starting to blossom, and people pretending they knew what would happen. No, they did not, they were watching and doubting, counting me out and expecting to crash. Now they keep watching the board as it changes and wondering how I keep adding to that. I got a mindset, it's built for the distance, not for a moment, a trend or a season, not for a headline, not for attention, not for a crowd that's just searching for reasons. Built for the mornings when motivation vanishes, built for the nights when the pressure increases, built for the moments where discipline matters and comfort is begging for pieces. So let them stare and let them compare and let them debate every move that I'm making. I got no time for the drama, I'm focused on building a future that bigger than statements. Every day stronger, every day sharper, every day closer to something substantial. Why they keep circling back to excuses? I'm moving ahead and the gap is exponential. Summer heat was hanging over the neighborhood when the old grocery store at the end of the street finally closed its doors. And most people walked past without thinking much about it, because to them it was just another small business disappearing. But to me it felt like watching a piece of my childhood disappear, because that store had been there longer than some of the buildings around it, and the owner knew almost everybody by name. Mr. Hand opened that place before I was born and spent decades standing behind the same counter, greeting the same customers and helping the same families. And when somebody couldn't afford groceries, he quietly wrote the amount in a notebook and told them to pay later. And somehow later always arrived, because trust was worth more back then than contracts. Business started slowing down when the giant supermarket opened across town, because convenience usually wins and price usually wins, and people rarely notice what they're losing while they're saving a little money. And every month there seemed to be fewer customers walking through the door, more empty hours waiting behind the register. One afternoon I stopped by after work and found him sitting alone on a stool, staring at shelves that were only half full. And for the first time he looked tired in a way I had never seen before, because physical exhaustion disappears after rest, but disappointment stays awake much longer. And the silence inside that store felt strange, because I remembered when it used to be full of conversations and laughter. Bass drifted from a car parked outside while sunlight came through the front window and covered the floor in long shadows. And for a moment everything felt frozen between past and future, but everybody knew the store was struggling, but nobody wanted to admit how the story would end. Band for band, but the pressure felt different, cause this wasn't about dreams getting bigger, it was about something valuable slowly disappearing. And watching that happen taught me that loss doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives quietly, one customer at a time.
Weeks passed and rumors spread, and eventually the closing announcement appeared on the front door. And suddenly people who hadn't visited in years started showing up, saying how sad it was, and talking about memories and wishing things had turned out differently. And the irony was painful, because support arrived at the exact moment it could no longer change anything. Closing day felt heavier than anybody expected, because the line stretched outside the building, and people kept bringing flowers and cards and old photographs, and everybody wanted to say thank you for something they should have appreciated sooner. And watching that happen made me realize how often people wait until the end to express gratitude. Tears filled Mr. Hand's eyes when he looked around the store for the final time, because every shelf and every corner carried decades of memories. And suddenly the place stopped looking like a business and started looking like a lifetime of effort compressed into 4 walls. Pressure built inside my chest while I stood there, but the story felt bigger than one grocery store. It felt like a reminder that nothing stays forever, and that ordinary things often become important only after they're gone. And that realization hit harder than I expected. Months later the building was empty, and the sign had been removed, and somebody else eventually rented the space. But every time I walked past I still looked toward the front window, because habits survive longer than places do, and memories survive longer than both. Life kept moving the way life always does, and the neighborhood kept changing, and new businesses opened and old ones disappeared. But I never forgot that final day, because it taught me something important, and that's the fact that appreciation delayed too long eventually becomes regret. Years have gone by since then, and I still think about that store. Whenever somebody tells me they'll call a friend later, or visit a parent next month, or thank somebody another time, because another time is never guaranteed, and opportunities often disappear quietly before anyone realizes they're running out. And the lesson left behind by that little grocery store still follows me everywhere. Because the things that matter most are usually the things people assume will always be there.
Started with doubt in the dark, in the dark, in the dark, in the dark. Started with doubt in the dark. Started with doubt in the air, in a room full of people convinced I would never go far. Now they're revisiting every opinion they made when they thought I was chasing a star. Funny how confidence changes the language of people who swore that the mission was flawed. Now they keep watching the scoreboard and wondering why I keep raising the bar. I was invisible back when the effort was heavy and nobody cared for the outcome. Building the future from pieces and pressure while carrying weight that would bury a loud one. Every delay became part of the blueprint, every mistake became part of the knowledge. Every rejection was adding a layer of strength and expanding the size of the target. They wanted confidence, safety and certainty. I wanted growth and uncertainty. I wanted days where the challenge was bigger than anything sitting in front of me currently. That's why the hunger is different, the energy different, the focus is locked and persistent. I never depended on luck or approval, I built it through repetition and distance. Whole lot of talking and claiming and framing themselves as the greatest to ever appear. Whole lot of pausing and hoping the image survives when the pressure is suddenly near. I see through every performance, every distortion, every attempt at importance. Because when it's time to produce something real, all the noise disappears without warning. I got no interest in copying waves or repeating the formula somebody invented. I'd rather be building a lane from the ground than be trapped in the trend that was already ending. Look at the way that they follow each other, recycling ideas and calling it progress. Meanwhile I'm taking a risk every day and converting that risk into something impressive. Back when they laughed I was learning, back when they doubted I stayed in the process. Back when they slept I was turning frustration and setbacks into an asset. Now every step got precision, every decision got purpose behind it. Every objective gets treated like something that absolutely has to be conquered. I don't move reckless, I move with direction, I move with intention and clear expectations. I study the patterns, the habits, the cycles that keep people stuck in the same situation. Then I broke out of every limitation they handed me, wrapped as a reasonable statement. Now they keep asking what changed, and I told them the answer was simple: dedication. Nothing was given, nothing was gifted, nothing was handed directly to me. I had to earn every inch of the position and every opportunity currently seen. That's why the mindset is different, because I remember the days when the vision existed, but nobody else could see it. Too many waiting for perfect conditions, too many searching for magical time, and too many talking about future success while avoiding the work that success is requiring. I got tired of hearing excuses repeated and dressed up as logical thinking, cause every excuse gets weaker the second the person decides that they're willing. Now when I enter the room there is tension, cause people can sense what I'm bringing. Not cause I'm loud but because of the standard that's shown in the work I'm delivering. Excellence leaves an impression, consistency leaves a signature pattern, and once you establish that level repeatedly, everybody notices it happens. Every year sharper, every year
smarter, every year harder to catch from behind. Cause why the debating and hesitating, I'm already improving 100 more times. Every day counts and I'm counting them more, treating each hour like part of the climb. Knowing that small improvements repeated for years become something impossible to hide. So keep the opinions and keep the assumptions and keep every comment you wanted to throw. None of it changes the path that I'm on and the pace that I'm choosing to go. I got my eyes on the future, my hands on the work and my focus intact. And every prediction they made about failure keeps breaking apart when confronted with facts. Built from persistence, driven by purpose, fueled by your vision, too vivid to quit. Learned that the loudest or rarely the strongest, and proof is the language that actually hits. Now I keep moving with calm determination while others get caught in the fear and hype. Because at the end of the day, only results decide who was talking and who was right.
Walked in with a calm face. Walked in with a calm face. Walked in with a calm face. Walked in with a calm face, but the whole place shifted. I was built from the pressure they folded under, while I treated every setback like conditioning. Everybody got opinions till the situation turns critical. And suddenly the confidence missing. I don't waste energy proving I'm different, because the results keep speaking before I even entered the building. Back then they laughed when the vision sounded bigger than the room could handle. Now the same people watching every move, trying to understand how the plan got assembled. I stay dangerous with patience, stay focused through phases, stay moving through mazes while they kept changing directions, chasing attention, breaking momentum, making excuses and calling it effort. I don't move loud, I move precise. Every step calculated like money on a ledger. Every risk measured, every lesson treasured. Every scar turned into something that made me better. You can hear it in the cadence, feel it in the tension, see it in the way they freeze when the name gets mentioned. I don't need validation from strangers, because I already survived situations that would have broken their spirit. Too many actors playing bosses, too many captions pretending they're ruthless, too many chains and watches covering insecurities nobody notices. I can see through the image, see through the gimmicks, see through the stories they built for the internet. Because when the pressure arrives and the lights disappear, character becomes the only thing left. Now the pace getting faster, the flow getting sharper, the room getting smaller, the target getting larger. Every competitor looking exhausted, while I keep adding another chapter, another layer. Another reason they panic whenever they hear that bass through the speaker. I came from the side where nobody expected success, where every dream sounded unrealistic and every ambition got questioned. So I learned how to build without applause, learned how to win without attention, learned how to stay dangerous in silence while everybody else was busy announcing intentions. Burned that bad because they missed it. I was never interested in temporary hype or artificial status. I wanted something lasting, something massive, something they couldn't copy after watching for 5 minutes. That's the difference, that's the distance between talking and living, between posting and building, between wanting and doing. I was straight pressure, straight motion, straight focus, no slowing, no folding, no hoping somebody opens the door, because I already kicked mine open. Every doubt got buried, every obstacle carried, every challenge turned into fuel for another level they said was impossible. And when they ask what changed, tell them nothing changed, except the scale. The hunger stayed, the discipline stayed, the work stayed, the vision stayed. And that's exactly why the scoreboard changed.
The first time my grandfather forgot my name, nobody in the family laughed, because everybody understood exactly what it meant. And I still remember him, sitting by the window looking out at the same street. He had lived on for more than 40 years while trying to hide the confusion on his face, and somehow that was harder to watch than any hospital visit, because illness feels different when it starts stealing memories instead of strength. At first the changes were small and easy to ignore, because he would forget where he left his glasses or repeat the same story twice during dinner. And everybody convinced themselves it was normal, because accepting the truth felt heavier than pretending nothing was wrong. But the truth kept getting louder, and eventually pretending required more energy than facing it. The city kept moving outside, while our family slowly adjusted to a reality nobody wanted. And every week seemed to take away something new, a name, a date, a face, a memory. And the strange thing was that he still remembered moments from 50 years ago more clearly than things that happened yesterday. And listening to him talk about his childhood felt like listening to somebody walking through a house while the rooms behind him disappeared one by one. The bass rolled through my headphones on the train ride home one night while I stared at my reflection in the glass and thought about how fragile everything really is, because people spend their entire lives collecting things and building things and worrying about things, only to discover that memory might be the most valuable thing they ever owned. And unlike money or property, there isn't a safe place to store it when time decides to come looking band for band. But the pressure hit different, because this wasn't about success and it wasn't about failure and it wasn't about winning. It was about watching somebody you love slowly drift away while still sitting right in front of you. And there aren't many experiences that teach perspective faster than that. Months passed and the condition worsened, and there were days when he recognized everybody and days when he recognized nobody. And every good day felt like a gift while every bad day felt like a warning. And the emotional roller coaster exhausted all of us, because hope and heartbreak kept taking turns sitting at the same table. Then one afternoon something happened that I still think about years later, because I walked into his room expecting another difficult conversation, and instead he looked directly at me and remembered everything: my name, my job, the last conversation we had. And for nearly an hour it felt like the disease had simply disappeared, and we talked and laughed and shared stories that we used to before any of this started. Now the rhythm starts building, because moments like that become bigger when you know they won't last. And every sentence feels heavier, and every smile feels more valuable, and every second feels impossible to waste, because time suddenly becomes visible in a way most people never notice. The sunlight came through the curtains and the room felt warmer than usual, and for a little while everything seemed normal again. But before I left, he grabbed my hand and said something I never forgot. And he told me that people spend too much time worrying about things that won't matter, and not enough time appreciating the people who already do. The city lights were turning on by the time I got home, and traffic was moving through the streets, and life was continuing exactly like always. But I wasn't the same person who left that room, because sometimes one conversation can rearrange your priorities more than years of experience ever could. A few months later, he forgot my name again, and eventually forgot almost everything else too. But strangely enough, I never felt as devastated as before, because that one afternoon had already given me what I needed. And even though the memories disappeared for him, they never disappeared for me. Now, when the pressure builds and life gets loud and everybody starts chasing things they think will make them happy, I find myself thinking about that room and that conversation, because success becomes smaller and gratitude becomes bigger every time I remember it. And the lesson still hits just as hard as it did back then, because in the end, the moments people remember aren't usually the expensive ones or the impressive ones, they're the honest ones. And whenever I pass that old street and see the window where we used to sit watching the world go by, I realize that life isn't really measured by how much we collect along the way. It's measured by how many people are still carrying pieces of us after we're gone. And that's a legacy bigger than anything money could ever buy. Summer heat was hanging over the neighborhood when the old grocery store at the end of the street finally closed its doors. Most people walked past without thinking much about it, because to them it was just another small business disappearing. But to me it felt like watching a piece of my childhood disappear, because that store had been there longer than some of the buildings around it. And the owner knew almost everybody by name. Mr. Han opened that place before I was born, and spent decades standing behind the same counter, greeting the same customers and helping the same families. And when somebody couldn't afford groceries, he quietly wrote the amount in a notebook and told them to pay later. And somehow later always arrived, because trust was worth more back then than contracts. Business started slowing down when the giant supermarket opened across town, because convenience usually wins and price usually wins, and people rarely notice what they're losing while they're saving a little money. And every month there seemed to be fewer customers walking through the door and more empty hours waiting behind the register. One afternoon I stopped by after work and found him sitting alone on a stool, staring at shelves that were only half full. And for the first time he looked tired in a way I had never seen before, because physical exhaustion disappears after rest, but disappointment stays awake much longer. And the silence inside that store felt strange, because I remember when it used to be full of conversations and laughter. Bass drifted from a car parked outside while sunlight came through the front window and covered the floor in long shadows. And for a moment everything felt frozen between past and future, because everybody knew the store was struggling, but nobody wanted to admit how the story would end. Band for band, but the pressure felt different, because this wasn't about dreams getting bigger.
It was about something valuable slowly disappearing. And watching that happen taught me that loss doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives quietly, one customer at a time. Weeks passed and rumors spread, and eventually the closing announcement appeared on the front door. And suddenly people who hadn't visited in years started showing up, saying how sad it was, and talking about memories and wishing things had turned out differently. And the irony was painful because support arrived at the exact moment it can no longer change anything. Closing day felt heavier than anybody expected, because the lines stretched outside the building and people kept bringing flowers and cards and old photographs, and everybody wanted to say thank you for something they should have appreciated sooner. And watching that happen made me realize how often people wait until the end to express gratitude. Tears filled Mr. Hand's eyes when he looked around the store for the final time, because every shelf and every corner carried decades of memories. And suddenly the place stopped looking like a business and started looking like a lifetime of effort compressed into 4 walls. Pressure built inside my chest while I stood there, because the story felt bigger than one grocery store. It felt like a reminder that nothing stays forever, and that ordinary things often become important only after they're gone. And that realization hit harder than I expected. Months later the building was empty and the sign had been removed, and somebody else eventually rented the space. But every time I walk past I still look toward the front window, because habits survive longer than places do, but memories survive longer than both. Life kept moving the way life always does, and the neighborhood kept changing, and new businesses opened and old ones disappeared. But I never forgot that final day, because it taught me something important, and that's the fact that appreciation delayed too long eventually becomes regret. Years have gone by since then, and I still think about that store. Whenever somebody tells me they'll call a friend later, or visit a parent next month, or thank somebody another time, because another time is never guaranteed, and opportunities often disappear quietly before anyone realizes they're running out. And the lesson left behind by that little grocery store still follows me everywhere, because the things that matter most are usually the things people assume will always be there. Summer heat was hanging over the neighborhood when the old grocery store at the end of the street finally closed its doors. And most people walked past without thinking much about it, because to them it was just another small business disappearing. But to me it felt like watching a piece of my childhood disappear, because that store had been there longer than some of the buildings around it, and the owner knew almost everybody by name. Mr. Hine opened that place before I was born and spent decades standing behind the same counter, greeting the same customers and helping the same families. And when somebody couldn't afford groceries, he quietly wrote the amount in a notebook and told them to pay later. And somehow later always arrived, because trust was worth more back then than contracts. Business started slowing down when the giant supermarket opened across town, because convenience usually wins and price usually wins, and people rarely notice what they're losing while they're saving a little money. And every month there seemed to be fewer customers walking through the door, and more empty hours waiting behind the register. One afternoon I stopped by after work and found him sitting alone on a stool, staring at shelves that were only half full. And for the first time he looked tired in a way I had never seen before, because physical exhaustion disappears after rest, but disappointment stays awake much longer. And the silence inside that store felt strange, because I remember when it used to be full of conversations and laughter. Bass drifted from a car parked outside, while sunlight came through the front window and covered the floor in long shadows. And for a moment everything felt frozen between past and future, because everybody knew the store was struggling, but nobody wanted to admit how the story would end. Band for band, but the pressure felt different, because this wasn't about dreams getting bigger. It was about something valuable slowly disappearing. And watching that happen taught me that loss doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives quietly, one customer at a time. Weeks passed and rumors spread, and eventually the closing announcement appeared on the front door. And suddenly people who hadn't visited in years started showing up, saying how sad it was, and talking about memories and wishing things had turned out differently. And the irony was painful, because support arrived at the exact moment it could no longer change anything. Closing day felt heavier than anybody expected, because the line stretched outside the building and people kept bringing flowers and cards and old photographs, and everybody wanted to say thank you for something they should have appreciated soon. And watching that happen made me realize how often people wait until the end to express gratitude. Tears filled Mr. Hunt's eyes when he looked around the store for the final time, because every shelf and every corner carried decades of memories. And suddenly the place stopped looking like a business and started looking like a lifetime of effort compressed into 4 walls. Pressure built inside my chest while I stood there, cause the story felt bigger than one grocery store. It felt like a reminder that nothing stays forever, and that ordinary things often become important only after they're gone. And that realization hit harder than I expected. Months later the building was empty and the sign had been removed, and somebody else eventually rented the space. But every time I walked past, I still looked toward the front window, because habits survive longer than places do, and memories survive longer than both. Life kept moving away, life always does. And the neighborhood kept changing, and new businesses opened and old ones disappeared. But I never forgot that final day, because it taught me something important. And that's the fact that appreciation delayed too long eventually becomes regret. Years have gone by since then, and I still think about that store. Whenever somebody tells me they'll call a friend later, or visit a parent next month, to thank somebody another time. Because another time is never guaranteed, and opportunities often disappear quietly before anyone realizes they're running out. And the lesson left behind by that little grocery store still follows me everywhere, because the things that matter most are usually the things people assume will always be there.